that, man.
Okay, let's get started. So welcome to Windows Management Use Citrix Endpoint Management session. My name is Wayne. I'm the product manager for Windows Device Management in general. And this is my co-presenter.
Hey, everybody. My name is Terry. Actually, my full name is Thierry Lucien Duchâtel de Montrouge.
Oh.
There will be a quiz at the end, but for now, just call me Terry.
Okay, so in this session, we're going to walk through with you about Windows Device Management. We're going to talk about two product offers that we have today in Citrix. One is Endpoint Management Service, the other is Workspace Environment Management Service. We're going to give you some demos of how it works, and we're also going to show you why this two product is so important for your smooth transition to the digital workspace. So talking about device management, this is not really something new, right? There is a lot of different options in the market already about device management. And if you look at all those market leaders, you will immediately find out that there is really something in common. First of all, the solution must be optimized for user experience. That means for the end user and also for the IT administrator, when they go into the solution, everything needs to be very simple, right? Maybe one or two simple click, then task done. So the solution must be very simple. And more importantly, the solution must be transparent for the end user. That means the end user don't need to care about backend complexity. When they go into the environment, everything is there. And also that the purpose of all those simplicity is to improve the end user productivity. And if you still remember in the keynote we announced the intelligent workspace, right? All those fancy notification, prioritized based on your urgency, all those things, is actually one aspect of the workspace, right? There is also other aspect, like you need to have the workspace app set up, you need to configure workspace app properly. And there is also other application, like, for example, Office 365. There is a bunch of configuration there, right? So the management solution kind of needs to facilitate the configuration of all those different pieces and bring them together and provide the end user experience. So there is also other aspects about the workspace, which is also important. Yeah. Okay, so it's a little bit late.
Yeah, that's right. So look, it'd be great if all that we had to worry about was just ease of use for our end users. But the reality is security is a huge part of what we do. Honestly, I would say it's probably at the forefront of what you guys are honestly being asked to do on behalf of your customers, sorry, your end users and so forth, right? And the nice thing is with the two offerings that we're going to show you, you kind of get both. In the past, it's always been this balancing of, hey, ease of use versus security, right? I see some people nodding their heads. Well, honestly, that doesn't have to be that way. We offer a lot of rich functionality, like single sign-on enablement. We do a lot of that, and that really adds security, and it makes it even easier for your end users. You don't have to worry about password management, and they don't have to type in their passwords again. That's a win-win, right? That one's a no-brainer for you guys. So security is absolutely at the forefront. And then we have a cloud service. I'm actually a cloud architect, so I'm kind of biased on this area. But Citrix has been, we've been solid in the cloud for a long time now. We have the Citrix Cloud platform that we build on. And it's really an enabler to, for all of your Citrix offerings.
Yeah, that's right. So the endpoint management solution that we provide is really to connect the end user experience and security and make them merge seamlessly and provide the service to the end user. So if you go back like 10 years before, if you look at Citrix, right, we do Zen App Zen Desktop, we do virtualization. But recent years, a big transition for Citrix is really moving towards Citrix Workspace. And if you look at Citrix Workspace today, there's really more things than just the virtualization. And in the workspace, you will also have your mobile device, that's the endpoint, right? You will have your different workstation, you will have laptop, all those different devices is already part of your workspace. So for any desktop management solution or any endpoint management solution, you kind of need to cover both the virtualization part and physical part. So this needs to be covered. And on top of the device itself, there will also be a bunch of different elements that you need to take care of. For example, application, right? You kind of need to provide the IT administrator a way to push down application, configure those preloaded preference for the application, and you need to make the application ready before your end user can use it. And there's also, of course, documents like enterprise data. You want to make sure that the right people have access to the documents. And more importantly, you also want to make sure that only the right people can access the data. You don't want data leakage, you don't want to lose any enterprise confidential information, right? So data security is obviously very important. And there is also identity, meaning that, how do you want to import like user account, machine account to the system, and how do you want to organize them? Those are something that is very basic that endpoint management solution needs to provide. There is more, like security, experience, configuration, device, all those things. So any endpoint management solution needs to provide the capability to handle all those differences. And looking at Citrix today, we actually provide two solutions. One is Citrix Endpoint Management Service, SYN for short. So this is, we also call it a modern Windows device management solution. Why is that? Because the solution is actually based on the Windows 10 MDM protocol, which is Mobile Device Management Protocol. And this solution is focused on Windows 10 only.
And let me just say, that's a terrible name. But it's not our choice, right? This is Microsoft. They like to call it modern management. What's modern today is probably not going to be modern tomorrow. But the key point is this is what Microsoft is pushing, right?
Correct. So CEM service today is actually a standalone service in Citrix Cloud. So if you subscribe to CEM service already, then CEM service will be a standalone tile in your My Service list. If you haven't subscribed to CEM service yet, then the CEM tile will be in your My Service available service list. So the other option that we provide is WEM, Workspace Environment Management Service. That actually comes along with the XenApp XenDesktop itself. So it provides both on-prem version and the cloud version. And for the on-prem version, if you have XenApp XenDesktop Enterprise and above license, then you will have access to WEM on-prem version. And on the other hand, we also have the cloud service version, which we announced last Synergy, and we make it available in August last year. So WEM Cloud Service is also an add-on to the Citrix Virtual App and Desktop Service. And there's a bunch of other services like XenApp Service as well. So if you purchase Citrix Virtual App and Desktop Service, CVAS service for sure. So if you have that one, then WEM service will already be part of your My Available Service list. So that's what we offer. And of course, WEM service is also entitled under the Super SKU, like Workspace, Premium, and Premium Plus. So that's the WEM service. So one of the common questions I have from my customer is, they always say like, look, I have my XenApp XenDesktop deployment, but I also have my physical device, right? I also want to manage all those physical devices. What is the option for me? And the option is actually CEM service. We actually put WEM service entitlement under CEM service. So if you have the SYN service already, then WEM service will also be available so that you can cover both virtualization and physical. So I assume that since we provide both solutions, right, the modern management and the WEM-based management, there is some similarity and there is some difference. So Terry, you're going to show us some deep insight of those differences and common things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me build this out a little bit. Honestly, so there's a lot of similarities, right? They both have a cloud service option. And again, that's what I recommend. Might be biased. There's a lot of options and settings and configurations that are common just because they're both doing Windows management. And I talked a little bit about this earlier. They're both optimized for your Citrix portfolio, right? They're already in Citrix Cloud. They're meant to integrate and work with your existing environment. There's also a lot of differences that is important to keep in mind. So MDM management on the left here is built into the operating system, right? I was talking earlier about how Windows is really considering this as the modern way to manage all of your desktops going forward. Now, it's only available in Windows 10 now, keep in mind. On the right-hand side is your traditional client-based management way of doing things, right? That, one of the big kind of gotchas there that you have to keep in mind is it's Active Directory based. So it's not always suitable for like a BYOD kind of scenario that you probably are seeing more and more of, right? The nice thing is that it handles just about every single Windows platform out there, whether it's servers or Win 7. I hope you don't have too many of those left. I'm sure you do. And so on and so forth. Now, you can kind of see I'm talking about device-centric versus user-centric. And that's true. But keep in mind that with either offering, you can actually always target a combination of device and user. It's just what the centricity is, if that's a word, right? So what I'm really trying to get at is the combination of the two is honestly better than just the sum of the parts, right? So by having both, you get this unified solution that's going to cover the breadth of everything that you need to do, whether it's VDA based or whether you're having BYOD scenarios and so forth. By having both of them, you cover everything. So if you have Windows 10, you should probably be looking at modern management, right? And so on and so forth. If you are OK with Active Directory as a requirement, then that kind of dictates some of the extra functionality that you're going to show. Later on, in fact, we're going to show you some demos that leverage aspects of both. And you can really see how by having both, you get a complete end-to-end story.
So one of the trends that we usually observe, and actually recently observed, is we're seeing that there is more and more customer transitioning from Windows 7 to Windows 10. For one reason, I think they don't have many choices, right? Because Microsoft is pushing Windows 10. But on the other hand, actually, Windows 10 is also providing more and more security features. Like, you will have the use case, I have personal data, I have enterprise data. How can I isolate them, right? There is Windows information protection. There is encryption software like BitLocker, which is encrypting your data, right? So Microsoft is pushing more and more security feature into the system itself, a kind of secure the system. And Terry, what is our play in the security area for the endpoint management service?
Yeah, so Windows 10 offers a lot of functionality that's built into the operating system. But to be honest, it's not really manageable in a sane way. So CEM, in our unified offering here, is really a way to make that manageable for you. So with this, you get your basic stuff, your OS updates, in your table stakes like app publishing, app deployment, whether it's EXE, MSI, even a Microsoft Store app and so forth, right? All of that is covered. But Windows 10 actually offers a lot of really cool features. Windows information protection. I'm not sure if everyone knows about that. We're actually going to show a demo later on talking about that. Stuff like BitLocker. I think that's a no-brainer, but man, that's a pain to set up. In fact, one of the things that I see some people nodding. I always love seeing that. One of the things that we're considering doing is handling the device recovery key for BitLocker for you. So if you guys are interested, please talk to me afterwards. I'd love to hear your feedback on that. But again, BitLocker, right, it does full disk encryption. It's absolutely a necessity in my mind if you have laptops, because if that gets stolen, you don't want your customer data getting stolen. And of course, your end users don't want their personal photos and stuff getting stolen either. So I think that really offers the benefits there.
Yes. So you want to make your environment secure, but you don't want to close all the door, right? So user experience is still the most critical part for any successful digital transformation. You want your end user to feel better, right? There's many aspects of user experience, and WEM service is really for that purpose. So you want to preload all those different configurations for the user, and you want to make sure that when they go in, everything is there. So you want to optimize their workspace, right? Pre-configure the workspace for them. And also that you want the login to be quick. You want the application to respond faster. You don't want to you don't want them to wait 1 minute for an application to open. So you want them, they can immediately access their tool and immediately use their tool to access the data. So of course you want a decent user experience. And another part is security, right? Like Terry just mentioned, Windows 10 already did a lot of security features. But the thing is, there is still the Windows Server, for example, right? There is still amount of legacy platform deployed today, right? Like Windows 7. How do we improve the security for the servers for Windows 7? So in WEM, we also provide a lot of security features like application security, which allows you to configure what is allowed to run and what is not allowed to run. So I just want to use one example from our real customer to explain further about the application performance optimization in WEM. So this is actually from T-Mobile. They have a big deployment of WEM today on their VDI environment and also on their RDS environment. So this is actually the data at the first month when they deploy the WEM and try to do some data calculation. And this is the data for the first month. So by just deploy WEM into their environment, doing nothing but just the optimization, and they immediately see there is 10% hardware capability increase, 10%. And also that before they implement WEM, actually their general Windows login is like 143 seconds. And after they implement those optimization, what they say is the login time reduced from 143 seconds to 69 seconds, which is 56% increase. So you might say that 10% is not a big deal, but in reality, is 10% increase of the hardware capability means that they can spend $1 million for other IT initiative. So 10% equals to 1 million.
And let me just point out, sorry to interrupt. Look, this is free, and I'm really glad my director just stepped out, because I shouldn't be saying this, right? But a lot of you are probably already have an entitlement to WEM today. Now, I don't know if you're using it. Maybe that's why you're here at the session. But look, this is just money that you're giving up if you're not already leveraging WEM, right? So
yeah, that's the money on the table. But the thing is, there is also other things, right? Because 56% increase of the login time, what does that mean? That means 1 minute login time optimized, reduced for a single login. And at T-Mobile, I think they have 50,000 users in general. And on average, every user logging 7 to 8 times a day. So if you do the math, that increase means that for T-Mobile, they can have 2,000 hours additional time for their real production work. That's a big saving. Let's take one step back and think about the management solution itself, right? There is always 3 aspects of any management software. One is device in the user onboarding. You want to make sure that there is a way that you can properly import user and device to the system. And more importantly, you want to organize them nicely to fit into your business requirements, right? And second thing, of course, is management. You want the tool to be able to configure, to push down settings, manage settings, to roam the settings, all those things. And lastly, very important, you also want to monitor the system. You want to understand what's going right, what's going wrong, and if there's something wrong, you want to push down some changes and continue monitor it, make sure that your mitigation really remove the issue from you. So this is really a loop, right? You continues to monitor the system, you continue to make configuration changes, and then you go back to monitor it again. So in the following session, we're going to break our product into these 3 categories and explain to you how WEM and CEM work in these 3 different categories. So first of all, it's about device onboarding. And we have a bunch of options for device onboarding in CEM, right, Terry?
Yeah. So I'm going to start with your MDM style enrollment, right? So you can do it manually, and the end user types in a bunch of information and that kind of stuff. To be honest, if I channel my English ancestors, I would say that's rubbish, right? That might work well for testing it out, that kind of stuff. But your end users, I don't know. I don't trust them that much. So what I really feel is the best way is autopilot. This is a Windows feature. If you are getting the devices for the very first time and you haven't even installed the OS yet, Windows Autopilot is the way to go. We have some great blogs on how to do this. And it's really just hands-free. You automatically get that MDM enrollment, and you don't have to worry about it again. Now, I'm sure you guys also have a lot of existing Windows environments that you also need to do. So for that, bulk enrollment is really the solution. And I'm about to give you a demo on how to do bulk enrollment. And you can kind of see what the user experience is going to be for the end user and what you have to do beforehand. Now, likewise for the client-based solution, aka the WEM service, basically that's just installing an exe and so forth. And you're going to use all of your traditional mechanisms and whatnot. In fact, if you're using like a VDA style approach, you can bake it into the image and so forth, right? So I won't belabor that point. So now let me go over to the demo. And what I'm looking at right now is the Endpoint Management console, right? And I'm going to go over to Manage and go to Device Whitelist. And here is basically, this is kind of like a security feature. We allow you to specify all of the devices that are allowed to enroll. You can add them manually. Don't recommend it. Instead, we have this import CSV style stuff. So first, you're going to download a template, which I've already filled out here. And you have two options. You can specify the device, either be a hardware ID or a device name. Honestly, the device name is what I'd recommend. It's really the only realistic option, in my opinion. And it's way easier to set up. So you just fill this out, and then you upload it back into the Endpoint Management. And you're going to get a list, like this, of all of the devices that you want to be able to enroll. The second part is going to Settings and then Windows Bulk Enrollment. And you can kind of see there's a lot of information here. And we're about to use this information. But the only thing you have to actually add to this is the user identity of the person that's going to actually do the enrollment. So I have this special enroll user within my Active Directory environment. And that's the person that's going to be doing that. So now I'm going to switch over to a Microsoft tool. And it's called Windows Configuration Designer. And in here, this creates a provisioning package. And again, a lot of what we do is we just make existing Windows functionality easier. You're going to see a lot of things. And by the way, you did see my password earlier. I don't know if you noticed that. If you didn't, I'm glad you didn't. It was very secret. But that's what goes under the secret thing right there. That's where you put in the password. Everything else is just what you see on the screen here. Really simple. You're going to end up with a PPKG file. And this is like a self-contained file. And then you can distribute that however you want. You can even send it over email to your end users. You can put it on a network file share. Microsoft recommends putting it in like a SharePoint environment. However you do it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to transition to a prototypical Windows 10 environment. And I've already distributed that file, however I've done that. And you can kind of see how easy this is going to be for the end user. All they have to do is double-click on that PPKG file. And of course, they have to accept this. And then it's going to ask them, hey, do you really want to enroll this device? They say yes. Go ahead and add it. And that's it. It's so simple, a monkey could do it, right? Like, it is really easy. So now I'm going to go back into Settings for Windows, and then into here, Accounts, and then finally, Access, Work, or School. And you're going to see that enrollment. In fact, you can see there I am. I have been enrolled into this MDM environment. And in fact, down below on the lower right-hand corner, you can see encryption added. And that's because those policies on my MDM environment have already kicked in. And you can actually see the policies in the lower left-hand corner. I already have BitLocker set up and so forth, right? So just like that, those policies are already kicking in. And you can also see the last sync date and some other information as well in the middle left side there. So, and honestly, that's really all you have to do in order to get started.
OK, now that you have your device and the user enrolled, right, the next thing is about configure. What is the option that we have? And there is always some challenges, common challenges in the user experience side. One is, my system is too slow, right? How come my login takes so many time? How come my application takes so many time to launch? And also there is issues like, is it too complicated? I need to go to different place for the same work. Like, if you want to do the Conquer, for example, you need to go to different place, find out different information and fill in, right? It's kind of complicated. And lastly, you have your virtualized environment, you have your physical device. Sometimes the user experience is not really consistent, right? You make changes in one place, but you go to another place, the change is not there. So what is the challenge from IT admin side?
And there's a lot, right? And I mean, look, you guys are already very familiar with these challenges, so I'm not going to spend too much time on them. But obviously, we have already spoken about the fact that you almost for sure have a mixed environment with your legacy environment, your server environment, and your Windows 10 environment, and so forth, right? There's a lot of concerns, and concerns means complexity, oftentimes more. And that's something that we aim to fix. I mean, that's a large part of making this easier. And then finally, the combination of new apps. And I was talking to one customer that had over 5,000 apps. I mean, that's just ridiculous. But this happens, right? And that kind of stuff. So we are really making it easy. I see some people smiling. It might have been that guy. But that's the kind of stuff that you really need some kind of management tool to help you with.
Yeah, so that's the options that WEM provides today. All the feature that list here is the feature that we already released. So that, for example, the application is slow, right? There is always CPU, memory, I/O optimization. We can optimize the way that application use the resource. And we also have, application configuration and all those different options for you to configure the environment. Those are supposed to help you with the slow logging issues. Because one of the biggest challenge for slow logging is really to process the GPU, right? GPU is pretty slow. And you can convert all those configurations into WEM. And one of the powerful engine in WEM is actually the assignment model, because you can select the different attributes to define how those settings is applied to your user. For example, you can use AD attributes, or maybe CVAT attributes. I mean, CVAT is the virtual app and desktop, right? So you can use CVAT attributes to assign those different configurations to the user, which really gives you the flexibility of those policy assignments. And lastly, about the inconsistency of configurations, that's the profile management is going to help you, right? In UPM 1903, we released the feature called Profile Container, that you can redirect part of your profile into a container. And that container will be mounted on the fly when you log into a new machine, so all the settings will be there. And the way that we do profile container is a little bit different from the market offer, because in the market offer, usually you redirect the entire profile into the container, right? And the way UPM handle this is, it allows you to define a small portion of your profile, like the real big files, big folders into the profile, so that only small portion will be redirected into the container. The benefit of this approach is really the multi-session environment. For example, you have your Zen app. It is very common that you might log into different applications at the same time, right? And if you put all the profile into the container, that means the conflict zone is actually at profile level, at the user profile level. And if we allows you to just grab a small portion of the file and the folder into the container, then we reduce the conflict zone to the file and folder level, which will help in the multi-concurrent scenario. And there's also other settings like application profiler that can give you the option to really define a small portion of the profile into the user shell. So that's the other area, like cross-platform configuration. That's also a feature of UPM that allows you map the settings between different operating systems. So next, I'm going to give you one quick demo of how the optimization works in WEM. So this is the WEM Cloud Service. And in the WEM Cloud Service, it's identical UI to the WEM on-prem version. It's identical. What I do is I enable the CPU optimization. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to log into one machine of mine. And I log into the machine. It takes some time to log in. But you will see that it's about 6 seconds the most. So you log into your machine. And in the machine, I have a preloaded application called CPU Eater. That application does nothing but consume CPU, okay? You can see that I launch CPU, and when I click on, then it will start to eat the CPU, then CPU goes to 98% already, right? In a normal situation, you cannot launch up other application, but in my case, I open my OneDrive, I go to demos, I can still browse all those different things. And if you go back to the CPU Eater, you will notice that the priority of that process goes to low. So that's the way that we optimize it. We optimize and let other applications to have the chance to use the CPU resource, so that other application will be optimized for the user experience, for the application responsiveness. And after that is about security, right? This is another case study. So in the security area, there is always challenges as well. Like in the workspace today, you have so many different devices, right? You have your mobile device, Windows device. Mobility is one thing. And also that there is privacy versus enterprise data challenges. And there is also many different use cases, right? Today you have BYOD device, you have contract, all those. Those different use cases add complexity to the enterprise data security protection. And there's a lot of options from IT as well.
Yeah, there are. And honestly, again, Windows 10 kind of gives you that already kind of built in. So containerization, you get that for free with Windows Information Protection for Windows 10. Likewise, BitLocker, that's actually not just Windows 10. But that's an absolutely key thing if you just want to do full disk encryption and handle a lot of those scenarios. So what I wanted to do is actually give you a demo of how to configure that from the Citrix Endpoint Management console. And you can kind of see how to push that out to all of your end users. So here I am, once again, back in the cloud version of the Citrix Endpoint Management console. I already have a number of device policies pre-configured just to kind of speed things up a little bit. We're going to take a look at the BitLocker one first. And you're going to see that the very first thing you're going to want to do is actually enable it. To be honest, this should probably be on by default. I'm not really sure why it's off by default, because if that's off, you're not going to get much benefit out of it. Another thing that you might want to take a look at are the encryption methods, which is really your algorithms. What do you want to use to encrypt it and so forth. And then finally, whether or not to have an additional prompt for the authentication. And this one's a little bit misleading. If most of your laptops have a TPM chip, you probably don't want to enable this. And I know that sounds a little unintuitive, but basically the TPM chip will automatically handle that for you. And it's going to get really annoying for your end users if they have to type in yet another password just to get the thing to get started. So just be aware that you have to kind of be cognizant of what kind of hardware that's getting deployed to. So the next part is just deciding which delivery group, in other words, which set of users and computers you want to assign that to. And next, what I'm going to do is take a look at Windows Information Protection. And this is really neat. It allows you to get that, that containerization for your customer data. And in fact, we're taking a look at the settings now for WIP. And the first thing you do is you define which apps and their controls. And that's the allowed column on the right-hand side there. There's three options: allowed, denied, and exempt. Allowed means that they're allowed to access customer data. Denied, for like Notepad, for instance, means that they're not going to be able to open up customer data. And then exempt is a terrible name. It means read-only. And then the enforcement level, and this one's key. There's, once again, three options. Silent is basically we're just going to log it, or you're just going to get aware of it, but there's no notification to the end user. Override might be quite common. That's the one where you give a warning to the end user that, hey, we're logging this, but you can still continue if you really think you need to. And then the last one is just block it. The next thing you do is you kind of define your enterprise boundary. And the first thing you do is for your identities. So that right there is your Active Directory domain information. And then there's a data recovery certificate. And this is probably the only confusing part. Fortunately, I have a demo that shows just how easy it actually is. You just type this into PowerShell or a command prompt. You decide on a password for securing the PFX file. And you're going to end up with two files, a CER and a PFX. I don't actually show it, but you go into settings, you upload that CER file, and that's it. Now, if you take a look at the dropdown, you will see that that's an option, right? The next parts are defining your network boundary, and that includes, your FQDNs for your internal sites and so forth, and then your private IP range for your internal network. And anything within that is considered your customer data boundary. And there's going to be all of those behaviors are going to get applied to that boundary, right? And then right here, you can kind of see I'm going, once again, just specifying whatever your internal private IP range is. There's a couple of other settings, but to be honest, that's mostly it. So I'm going to go ahead now and just apply it to a delivery group once again. And that's it. I now have created my policies. I've assigned them to my users. So I'm going to log in to a Windows 10 machine and see what that looks like. Once again, I'm going to go into settings. This is the manual rubbish way of doing this, right? Accounts, access work, and you can see I only have it. Sorry, this is actually the cool way of doing it. I did it with a PPKG file. That's the right way to do it. And now you're going to see that we have enrolled. Actually, I have to refresh. Now, you're going to see it's enrolled. And once again, there's my BitLocker stuff automatically kicking in. And then the policies on the left-hand side once again, show you that data protection and that network isolation. And that's that Windows information protection that's kicking in. And again, the behavior that you're going to see is stuff like you're not going to be able to save it or export those files outside of your network because it's deemed customer data. It's containerized, right? So that's the big benefit that you really get with Windows 10 for this Windows information protection feature.
So the other use case is really, let's say I'm a more advanced IT administrator. So I create a lot of script to automate all those things, right? Is there any way that we can use SAM to push down PowerShell or maybe some customization?
Absolutely. And in fact, I think you kind of stole my thunder. But yeah, so this is sort of like, well, like it says here, right? This is more of the advanced functionality. As soon as I push the right button. And one of the things that we really do is enable you the full functionality of PowerShell. So pretty much anything you can imagine nowadays, you can probably do with PowerShell. So what we do is we allow you to push down a PowerShell script, execute that, and importantly, it'll report back the status of that, and it'll only execute it once. So with that, you can do all kinds of stuff, like handle really weird app publishing configuration scenarios and that kind of stuff. And then in addition to that, we have something called custom XML. And that is another huge enabler. And we have a lot of blogs on how to do really neat stuff like per app VPN. And I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I think is absolutely killer. If you want to limit access, having something like a per app VPN really gives you that data security when it's in transit. So those are two features that we're going to talk more about at the end. We have some links. And you can take photos of that and see how we do that.
Yeah, the last case study that we're going to share with you is about transitioning from the on-prem environment to the cloud. And this is for WEM, because we have the on-prem version and the cloud version, right? And we talked about this already in the last Synergy. So in the UI, we actually gave you the option to download a migration tool. And the way it works is, you download the tool, you execute it on your environment. And what it does, it will generate a configuration file. And you can upload that configuration file into your cloud deployment. And what you do is, the cloud service will automatically import those uploaded configuration file and import it into the database. Then your migration is done. So it's a very quick, easy way for you to migrate your on-prem environment to the cloud service. So that's the managing part. And the last part we want to talk about is monitoring, right? And in SAM Console today, we provide monitoring and reporting. And we also provide some reporting and monitoring function in WEM as well. So this is a list of things that we can do today for the monitoring reporting part. It's not that much feature, but we are in the way of adding more monitoring and reporting function to the product itself. So again, I think our strategy is moving towards unification, right? Unification means that we want to provide you one single UI for Windows device management. It needs to cover both MDM and WEM. You don't need to worry about what is the backend technology. We can handle all those things seamlessly in the backend. And all you need to know is it supports both WEM and MDM. That means Windows 10 for modern and also Windows Server. And of course, we will support both physical and virtual. And this strategy is not future. It's now. Because we have example that this is a feature that already shipped for GPO management. And this is actually an example of how this unification is going to work in the future. So in this group policy management function, and this is actually something that we can configure in the SAM console, CEM console, of those different settings. And the way it works is all those settings, after you configure it, those settings will be pushed to the WEM service. And then WEM service will use the WEM channel to push down the configuration to the WEM agent to process it. Still remember, one of the benefits of WEM for setting management is quick, right? Is its performance. So if you use this way, you will get the benefit of performance. And in the same time, all the things that group policy can manage can be done via the SAM console. And as Terry will have a demo to show this.
Yep. Yeah, and another benefit is it really helps also with disconnected laptops and that kind of stuff, because the WEM component will still be able to get those GPO policies. So let's take a look as to how this would look. And first, I'm going to start out in the Citrix Endpoint Management console. Once again, I'm looking at the device policies. And there's one for GPOs, the Windows GPO configuration policy. And I'm going to go in and take a look at the settings. And there are a lot of settings. Pretty much all of the settings that you would expect are going to be available here. And this is just an example of what you would expect to see. You know, the 3 states and so forth for your typical policy. We do both device and user. So what I'm going to do is just show you 2 policies that I've configured, 1 device and 1 user. And the first one is for whether or not to show the lock option in the user menu. And then I'm going to do another one to show you whether or not to display the time in the sys drive. And look, these are not really useful policies, but I'm just kind of easily show you that it's possible. Not rocking the boat here. You do have to apply it to Active Directory joined machines, of course. And then one thing I should make clear, you do need to have both offerings, right? This is a combination of CEM and WEM working together. So now I'm going to go to a Windows 10 laptop, and I'm going to show you the before. And if I take a look, there's my lock option. I'm trying to get rid of that. And then there's the time, and I'm trying to get rid of that too, right? So now I'm going to reboot the machine, and we're going to take a look at what that looks like afterwards when those GPO policies get applied. So now I've just rebooted, and the WEM agent has contacted. And if we take a look, the lock option is gone. And of course, you can see there's no more time. So mission accomplished. We have secured this Windows 10 laptop.
Fantastic. So the next is the blocks that Terry mentioned a while ago about some advanced configuration options. You can use the customized XML to configure per app VPN on the Windows platform. You can deploy the Win32 apps as well using those more advanced technologies.
Yeah, and let me just add, I mean, this is really like when you guys are ready for the advanced stuff, this is basically, it's like your Batman utility belt, right? Anything that you can think of, you can accomplish with these 2 mechanisms. Yes.
So as a key takeaway, let's just remember these things, right? First is we actually provide this already. So we will provide you a unified Windows management solution that will cover both MDM and WEM agent-based management solution. And for the MDM part, we will be more focusing on the modern device management, which is Windows 10 device management. And for WEM, we are focusing on things beyond MDM. We are focusing on the Windows Server platforms. We are focusing on things cannot be done via the MDM channel, for example, the resource optimization, those things. So that's the thing that we're going to do. And feel free to really tell us your comment, thinking, feedback, all those things. We are here really to listen to you and understand what you need. And what we really want is taking your comments and make them into the product and improve the product and eventually help you with your digital transformation. And we are the last session of the entire endpoint management product, but there is a bunch of different sessions that happened already that you may want to take a look at Citrix TV as a replay. And those are really some updates of things happening, those technical updates, all those things. So feel free to read this session as well as a requirement. So provide us your thinkings. So, okay,
much appreciated.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.